Hey, folks, for episode 77 of the Rental Roundtable, we had on Bekah Ware. She's the founder and CEO of NYAMARK, which stands for Not Your Average Marketing Company. She started the company about 10 years ago, has since pivoted towards working really exclusively with equipment rental companies, dealerships, and OEMs. We talked about her story starting NYAMARK and how she ended up in the rental space. We talked about uh, how do you position your company and really how do you position about who you go after and what your goal is as you market, which is ultimately to make money. And if you don't get those two things right, like nothing else follows from there. We talked about how AI is going to impact SEO long term and some initial thoughts there. And ultimately, the question of how do you make marketing not suck? And we got some interesting answers on that. So, really fun episode with Bekah. If you're thinking about how do you take your marketing up a level as a rental company, I think you'll enjoy this one. All right, everyone, welcome to the Rental Roundtable, episode number 77. We have on Bekah Ware, founder and CEO of NYAMARK. Bekah, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
First question: what does NYAMARK stand for?
NYAMARK is not your average marketing company. We work with manufacturers, distributors, and rental houses and dealerships. So we cover all sides of the market and we do everything all in one location. So we're one of the very few places that you can come to, and we'll do everything from your website to ordering your t-shirts.
Well, I love the name. It's very catchy. It stands out. It's not like digital marketing co. It's like very it's catchy. And then when I saw the name, I was like, I got to understand what this is. And yeah, I think your homepage you explain what it is. So you're proving your marketing prowess by having a name
There we go.
that sticks out, right? This is the whole thing. People like I would drive down the highway, they misspell words, so you can pay
Yes.
attention. It grabs your attention at least, right?
Yep. We used to be Wear Marketing and Design. WMD, my husband named it, which is great. And about 2, 3 years ago, I decided I didn't want it to just be me, that people were asking for. We had grown a team and it was fantastic. And we wanted to be able to serve a wider audience faster and not have them be disappointed when it wasn't just me picking up the phone. And we always pick up the phone.
Part of scaling, right? You have to fire
Yes.
yourself from jobs. It's hard as the founder, and you got to grow.
Yep.
And the way you do that is you have to fire yourself. That's what I remind myself. And hopefully, it sounds like you've been able to hire people maybe even better than you at certain jobs. At least I have. I have
Yes.
my you upgrade the team by getting yourself out of the way sometimes.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, for today's episode, we're going to talk about marketing. So, you guys do marketing for OEMs, equipment rental companies, and dealerships who have rental arms. And a lot of your customers, majority, maybe half at least, are rental companies. And
Yep.
rental companies do a lot of great things. Well, sometimes they do struggle with marketing and thinking about marketing. So, we're going to talk about that for this episode. I always like to start with people's story and background. Here we are on the podcast in end of October 2025. We'll see you at the ARA show, but how did you get here? How did you start Nymark? How did you get into the rental space? Tell me about your story, how we got here today.
It's a fun and interesting story. So I graduated high school and college in 3 years. So I graduated both two years early, and thought I was going to be a psychoneuroendocrinologist and work in a lab and develop drugs and understand how they interact with our brains. And then I realized I had to like sit in a lab all day long, and I would have
Yeah.
to become a doctor, and that just wasn't my jam. So instead, got married and had babies and was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. And after 10 years, I was like, hey, we need to do something to bring in some income. My husband was coding websites. This was back when marketing was so easy. You could just post on Facebook and
Yeah.
things worked. I went on, I forget what it's called. It's something totally different, like one of those like freelancer websites things, and found an event planning company in New York City. And I started
Mm.
blogging for them. And from there, they were like, can you do our social media? Can you do this? And at the same time, my husband was working on websites. I was like, why don't we just do our own thing? Like, why don't we just like figure this
Mm.
out? So a little over 10 years ago, where marketing and design was born. And we worked together for about mm, 7 years, something like that. And it was very quickly just me. He's got a full-time job. He's an engineer. He's a great engineer. And we rebranded to Nine Mark last year, which is great. And along that, I had a wonderful friend who is a dealer and a rental house. And he would sign on brands. And every time he signed on brands or met someone else, he'd be like, dude, your marketing sucks. You need to use my marketing girl. So we grew as he grew, and learned a lot along the way. And now we do a lot more services and work with many, many, many companies within the industry on all sides of the market.
That's awesome. Did you start focused on equipment when you started the company? You said about 10 years
No,
ago,
I
or
did
no?
not.
No. Tell me about how you got
I
here.
started in the indie beauty industry because that was a really easy launch from the event planning company. It was really easy to get, hooked up with their chairs, makeup artists, anything that had to do with an event. So whether that was a wedding, a bridal shower, a corporate event, anything like that. So that was a really easy launch. And at the same time as this friend was merging from a landscape into a dealership and now a rental house. Um, the roots of growing up in upstate New York and growing up with tractors and all that fun stuff, it was way more appealing, and just a better fit. I would love to say we only do manufacturers, dealers, and distributors and rental houses now, but we did purchase another company a few months ago, and now we service a wide range from tech companies to healthcare to all that kind of stuff now. So we have a much wider breadth, going back to your beginning of like sometimes the best thing is to fire yourself and bring on good help that will help you grow and scale.
Yeah, so it sounds like, you did not start in equipment at all, maybe
No.
the opposite of that,
Yes.
gravitated towards that, and that's been a focus, right? The whole
Yep.
niches to riches strategy, right? You
Yes.
pick a lane, and now you bought another company that's going a little bit more broad, but,
Yep.
what about the equipment industry, rental companies, dealerships? Like, you could have done a trillion different industries. You gravitated towards this one without a real major equipment background. What about this industry was so attractive to build your company around?
It's comfortable and uncomfortable at the same time. So it is, I've found over the years, it doesn't matter if you're a Caterpillar or if you are a small rental house. It's a very tight knit industry.
Mm.
And it is less, trying to think of a really good word. It's more relational, than cutthroat. So even though brands are competing against themselves and rental houses essentially are competing against themselves, there's more unity within the industry, and camaraderie, and that is really, really appealing, and makes it great. And then you've got places like ARA that brings all of those varying backgrounds together and focuses on community and education and all of the pieces that everybody needs in order to grow and scale. And again, it doesn't matter if you're Caterpillar Case or if you're a small emerging brand that's just getting in, or if you're a rental house that has one location or a rental house that has 50 locations. There's something for everybody, and that's super appealing.
Mm, I agree. It's very welcoming industry. I worked in the automotive industry before Quipli, and for 10 years in car dealerships. And I would not say it's warm and friendly. They're very much competitive.
Yep.
And it's not the rail companies aren't competitive. It's just like, let's all win together. Let's make the pie bigger. Like, we're gonna compete, of course, but like, we don't need to be cutthroat with each other. Right. Even the
Right.
nationals, they drive a lot of innovation. They'll come to the ARA show. They'll be like, here's our plan. Here's all the stuff we're doing. And it's like, they're very open about it.
Hmm.
And for me as an outsider, I don't know if you feel this way, but it's very, I guess, just welcoming to come into an industry where people generally want you to be there. They want you to come. It's not like, hey, you're not from the industry, go away. It's you're not from the industry, and like, let me show you my rental house. Like, people love to show you their store, and
Yeah.
they're open book. And I'm sure you felt that when you were kind of pivoting into this space too.
Yeah, well, it's their babies. So whether
Yeah.
it's, we've worked with places that are small family owned, it's been in generations, like they have grown and scaled over the years. So whether it's still one location or it's now three or five or whatever the deal is, it doesn't matter. Like
Mm.
their blood, sweat, and tears have gone into growing what that is. And that needs to be rewarded and celebrated. And this community is a place that does that in a unique way, which is kind of cool.
Part of the relational side, which this is a very relational, sometimes someone say handshake industry in a sense. I imagine some people are probably like, it's all relationships. I don't need marketing. Marketing does like, which is like sort of true, but not really. Like, it all works together, of course, right? Obviously, I know the importance of marketing, but does that ever come up? Are people like, why do I need marketing? I know everybody. It's a relationship industry, right? Does that come up when you work with clients, and how would you address that?
All the time. Like all the time. And I will be honest, I am the world's worst salesperson ever. Like off the time, oftentimes we're either in the manufacturer themselves or we're with the rental house and they'll be talking about marketing and be like, oh, well, someone said that I should be doing SEO or someone said that I should be
Mm,
doing this or like, I feel like I should be doing marketing. But like, again, Bob's friend's cousin keeps telling his third nephew, and we keep getting business that way. And it's all word of mouth. And why am I spending money and all that kind of stuff like that? And the answer is, well, maybe you shouldn't be spending money. And that I often get a very like surprised reaction with that of like, someone who's truly on your team, whether I'm a
mm,
marketing company or another individual that you're hiring or someone walking into your store, isn't just going to try to sell you a book of services because it grows who I am as a business. They want to grow you as well. So if you
mm.
win, then I win. And that's how it should be. And that's part of the reason I love the rental industry and just equipment in general. There's more of that. If you win, I win. And that's the way that it should be approached. So when people are like, should I be marketing? That's not actually the question. The question is, where are your customers? How are you getting them? Who is your customer? Are you getting enough of them in the door? Are you slow? Are you too busy? And then the other part of that is, if you're slow and you want to grow, do you have all of the things set up internally? So if we start marketing, you can take an influx of customers. And conversely, if you're busy, are you serving what you have well? Do you have
Mm.
everything set up internally so that you can serve and scale within? Because if you can't answer those two questions, you shouldn't be doing marketing yet.
So sometimes people will be like, "All right, I'm ready to do some paid ads because my friend told me," and you're like, "I
Yes,
actually don't think you should be doing that at all," right?
correct.
Which is great. That's a great partner. Some people we put turn people away all the time. We'll refer people because like go back to the relational side in the long term, building a long term business, like doing the right thing for a customer in a very small industry. I think your reputation matters, and yeah, it's like you could probably get a few more customers in the short term, but like you're actually looking out for the customer, which probably is like very refreshing to hear. Like, oh wow, you're like selling against yourself right now, and I think you build trust that way. And I have to imagine that some of these rental companies they'll come to you and say, "Hey, we want to do extra Y," but like they don't actually need to do it. We've had several companies we've talked to recently who are like, we don't want to grow anymore. Like we don't have any more equipment. We don't
Yep,
have we need a second location. Until I buy a second location, we can't grow. Like we're already at 80, 90% utilization. Like if you're those places, then like you probably should not be spending more money on marketing.
correct.
That's not everybody. Most people do want to grow. We had people at the ARA Young Professional event on Monday. They said, "What's your biggest challenge going in 2026?" The number one answer was growing revenue. So that still is for the most people the number one challenge going into next year.
Yep,
But you have to be honest with yourself. That's not everybody, right?
yep, yeah.
Can you talk to me about some of the customer journey a little bit about once you start working with a rental company and they are in the camp that they want to grow, you've done your homework and they have equipment that's underutilized, they have the staff, they're ready to go. How do you actually get end users to rent from you? What's that journey like?
Well, it's fun. Like, they often laugh at me where I'm like, you know, "Describe your ideal customer." And they giggle and laugh. I'm like, "I'm not kidding." Like, the
Yeah.
person who walks into your rental house, who is that? Is it, Joe Smith, landscaper? Is it your DIY weekend warrior? Is it, road construction? And, we're larger businesses that are gonna come in and they need an X or a Y, and it's gonna be a long-term rental. It's gonna be 1 week, 3 weeks, 3 months, like your terms. Who is your customer? And
Mm,
working through that process is often really surprising, because by the end, either they already knew and it was easy to go through, or they're like, wow, I never realized that the bulk of our business are weekend warriors. They're the people who,
mm,
saw something on Pinterest, or their wife told their husband to go rent something and put in a fence, or, something like that. Or sometimes it's, we rent equipment. It goes to smaller construction firms that are doing long-term road projects, or building developments or things like that. So our units are out for 2, 3, 4 weeks, 3 months, something like that. So they're longer. Once we identify that, then we can figure out where they are. Because you have
Mm,
to know who they are to know where they are. And once you know that, then you can talk about, all right, so, and we're going to go with the weekend warrior because that's the easiest one to do right now. The weekend warrior is going to be on Facebook. They're going to be on TikTok. They're going to be on Instagram. They're going to be searching Google, trying to find, excavator rental near me, skid steer rental near me, enter any other, thing you would need for a weekend, with, a seed spreader, attachments, tractor, backhoe, things like
mm,
that.
mhm,
They're going to be searching those items. And within your area, if you aren't present, they aren't coming to you. They're going to go to your local competition. And that's where the driving revenue for 2026, if they can't find you, they can't come rent from you. And
mm,
that's a mixture of paid ads, SEO, which, yes, in turn is organic, but it's also paid for because you have to pay for someone's labor to do it. We're always super honest with that. It is free in quotation marks,
mhm,
that you're not paying a Google ad for it, but you are paying someone to do it, whether that's a person internally that, has a decent knowledge of search engine optimization, or whether that's a company that's doing it. There's still payments that needs to be calculated into what you're spending, on your total marketing. And then it's your efforts internally. It is great and awesome to hire an external marketing company. They're fantastic. Obviously, I'm biased. Um, but you need to have internal people that are willing to do the work to support any marketing efforts. So the person that's okay doing a TikTok, a funky trend that's happening so you can hit the algorithm.
mhm.
The funniest ones right now are like, the boss said we need to sell more, more trucks. And it was like, say less. And it's a guy doing like a scandalous dance in the back of a flatbed truck that's totally, like that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. You need to have people who are willing to do that, because you know what? Those get eyeballs, and those eyeballs look at your brand, and then they come and they see more of your socials, what you're doing. And then maybe they walk in your door. And the other part of that is you have to track. You have to ask every person that comes into your store, how did you hear about us? So, was it John's cousin that said, I rented this from this place and it was the best experience I've ever had? They were responsive. Was it a Google ad? Was it an Instagram short? Was it a LinkedIn post? Did you write a blog and they read it? You need to know where your dollars are being spent, so that you can spend more of them in the right place. Because again, if you're not spending them in the right place, you are going to be grumpy with your own marketing efforts, and you're going to be grumpy with the company that you hired,
Mm.
because it's not working and you just feel like you're hemorrhaging money like it's going through your fingers like water.
Yeah. Well, there a lot of great things you just said there. Some replace some of on the marketing. I think about the guy in the pickup truck dancing, whatever. Yeah, the 48 Rules of Power book, which I think is banned in prisons, actually. But one of the rules is
Really?
court attention at all cost. And that's
Mhm.
sort of like what marketing is. Like, no such thing as bad press. I mean, do things that are like you feel comfortable with, but like get attention. And dancing on TikTok can get you attention,
You
right?
can.
Um, so you went through effectively, I think, like maybe a couple, maybe 2, 3 steps there, right? Kind of go through your marketing, right? Like one is who's your customer, and like be very clear about that. Number 2 is like where are they,
Yep.
and 3 is how do you target them, right? So that first question, who are they? Who is your customer? You mentioned people sort of laugh, like I know who my customer is, but like when you force them to write it down, is that a struggle for people? Are people like, actually,
Yes.
you know what? I don't actually know if I've ever thought about who specifically. Like, what's their name? What do they? Where do how much do they rent? Like, and be like very specific about it. How much of a struggle is that?
A ton of struggle. And a lot of places have piecemealed process and software and things like that together. So we find
Mm,
that places that have a dynamic rental software, or even just point of sale system, they can go in and they can check. Like they can say, we rent 90% excavators. I'm like, great. That's a great place to start. All right. Who's coming in to rent the excavator? Who is it?
mm,
Describe the person that's coming in to rent the excavator. Is it a landscaper? Is it a contractor? Is it a hardscape? Is it a plumber? Is it that weekend warrior? Are they male? Are they female? What ages are they in? What demographic? Are they, again, are they a homeowner? So their scale and rental time and the amount of revenue that you're going to get from them smaller. Is it a construction firm that's a larger construction firm? And again, they're going to do that longer term rental. They're going to rent more than one unit. You're going to get a higher, value for that customer. And that's not to say that all customers aren't valuable, but when we're talking about getting revenue in, and to your point of what the young professional said at ARA, um, if the biggest challenge for 2026 is getting revenue in, you have to understand your customer and where they are and how to get them in,
Mm.
and which ones to get in. So if it is a construction worker and you want more construction firms to come in, well, maybe you run a special. Maybe you target ads to them. Maybe you do all three of them in segmented times and you do trial and error and test and say, okay, this works. This doesn't work. This works. And then you get to hone that in. That's part of it too. It's a learning experience. There is no, I do this, I do this, I do this, and then it works. It's a continual process of learning and growing because, as we know, for everything, the market is continually changing. Always.
Always. And I think
Always.
maybe more so with AI, we could talk about in a second. But uh, Even that question, who is your customer? I think that's the benefit of having a third party consultancy come in, right? Because and you mentioned like you still need internal champions to drive this through because
Yep.
like you gotta at the end of the day, the rental company is responsible for their own marketing, right? You can't outsource that fully. Like the at the end of the day, like you have to market your own company. You have to believe in what you're doing. But the who's your customer question, having someone come in and ask that from like you get out of the trees to see the forest. We've had people do that. I've been in part of companies that we've done that question, and every single time you're like, oh my gosh, it's not just a marketing question; it's a company positioning question. Like, who are we?
Yes.
And it's ties into marketing, everything after that. But like, it's like a owner CEO level discussion because if you really say like, okay, we looked at it, and our best customers are weekend warriors, and like that's who we dominate. We dominate the weekend warrior market in the northeast part of Atlanta or whatever. Well, then like everything you do as a company should be like marketing towards that. Don't be
Yeah.
marketing to the heavy equipment and all the other stuff. And that's in my experience seeing marketing groups come in. Like that's like almost the most important thing. It's very, very clarifying who you are as a company because then you're like, well, why are we buying all this big equipment that's not towards our ideal customer profile, right? Um,
Yeah.
of all the things here, that to me seems like almost the most important is like getting your company positioning right. Who are we? How are we different? Who do we serve? And I think if you look at most rental company, a lot of rental company websites, it's sort of like generic, equipment rental near me, but like who's your ICP? And I think that's probably an area that probably makes people a little uncomfortable when you first work with them and you're like, who is your customer? And they're like, I don't know. Right. So after that, you identified your customer, you start to target them. What are some of the different channels that have been working for rental companies? You mentioned like TikTok ads, and maybe it depends, right? Because it's different for weekend warriors than your larger contractors. But when you think about putting together a marketing plan for folks, what are the different components? SEO, paid ads. How would you think about that?
Yeah. So it really goes, we work backwards, and we say, okay, what's your goal? Which you would think most places would start, the goal is, more revenue,
Right.
but oftentimes it's the like, I have to do paid ads, I have to do social media, I have to's instead of what the goal is. And the goal is to make more money. Always. It doesn't matter if it's a branding exercise or they just want to get their word out. The ultimate goal for every company ever is to make more money because if you make more money, you have sustainable growth and you can keep going. So if they come with me with a different goal, I'm like, but the real goal is to make more money, right? And they're like, well, yeah, and I'm like, that's
Uh,
the real one.
on that note,
So
I was at an ARA event and they were asking about like what motivates people, and they were like, and it's like, all right, she was like, let's just be honest, like it's to make more money. Like, how many
yeah,
people would still show up to work on Monday if you didn't get paid? Raise your hand.
right.
And it's like, okay, no, let's be honest about like why your company exists to serve your customers, of course, but like it's to generate a profit, of course, too, right? So,
Yep.
it's very refreshing to hear you say that, especially from a marketing person. Like, yeah, all these things are cool, but like we need to drive ROI. That's why we're doing this.
Yep. Yeah, and it's crazy. So you start with the goal and then you work your way backwards. So what's the goal? And then what's the budget? What can you reasonably spend for the next quarter, the next year, however you decide to do it. So if it's a larger location that has multiple brands, they'll go over the course of a year because they want to know what their budget is for the year. So we'll help them make that. If it's a smaller brand, oftentimes it's just 3 months. They're like, "I'm comfortable spending for the next 3 months $1,000 a month," or maybe it's $2,000 a month. And then we go back from there and we go, "Okay, if your goal is to make more money, your budget's only 2 grand a month, we've identified this as your customer. Here's what's reasonable for you to do to spend." And then we ask the hard question of, does that $2,000 a month mean that includes the employee's time in your rental house that's going to make the TikToks that we're going to, or Instagram reels or social media posts that we're going to recommend? Is that included in that budget? Because that's important too. The labor that you're paying people internally also contributes to part of your marketing budget. And if you're calculating that, then that's an important thing for us to know too, to make sure, again, at the end of it, you feel like you're getting value and you're experiencing a positive outcome versus I just spent all of this money and nothing happened.
Hmm.
So yes. So does that include the person's time? And then after that, we'll go, okay, so it didn't. You're going to spend $2,000 a month. Your goal is to make more money. Your ideal customer is the weekend warrior. We're going to recommend that you spend X amount of dollars on Google to get in front of people, search, display, all that kind of stuff like that, and X amount of dollars on Facebook/Instagram. Um, we're not going to market on TikTok. It's really for funsies. That's my personal position. People can argue with me all day long. It's totally fine. We're all entitled to our own things. And then I wouldn't recommend LinkedIn for the weekend warriors. That's just not where
Hmm.
you're going to find them. That's not your market. Uh, and then we go through and we help them set up, maybe they don't have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. So we'll help them set that up. Maybe they have never made a Google Ads account or any of that kind of stuff like that. So we will help them set all that up and then go through the process of doing that and explaining to the best of our abilities in a way that's comprehensible for them to know what they're spending and why they're spending it. Because in the beginning, if you've never done it before, it sucks a lot and it feels like you're wasting money.
Yeah, so you're having that budget conversation and you're making a recommendation like, "Hey, okay, to hit your goal,
Yep.
we've agreed of who your customer is. We now understand what your goal is. You want to grow X percent. Here's the budget you need to hit those numbers." Um, what's the reaction to that usually? Are people like, "Let's do it. Where do I sign?" Or are people like, "Wow, that's a lot more than I thought." Like, what's that budget conversation like when you work with groups?
It's a mixed bag. I have the people that are like, "Oh my gosh, that's so much money, I can't do that." And then part of me is like, "But you can't afford not to. You're
Yeah.
competing with all
Yes.
of these places. They're not gonna find you. I will work my darndest, my team will work your darndest, to make sure that you get a result. I can't guarantee it. There's no guarantees in life. I can't guarantee it, but we're gonna work our best. We're gonna treat your business like it's ours." Um, Other places that, there's 2 bags for other places. One of which is, I've done this before. I've been burned by marketing companies. I'm a little skeptical. How are you gonna be different? How are you gonna protect my business? How are you gonna help me? How are you gonna do that? And we have to navigate a little bit of emotional trauma, for lack of better purpose,
Mm.
because not everyone is created equal. Not every company is created equal. It's not one size fits all. So we navigate through that. And then the other side is there's places they have done their research. They were ready to sign on the dotted line when we started the conversation. It's a real easy conversion. And it's just here I'm going to follow up. Here's a this. This is how we get started. Blah, blah, blah. Sign on the dotted line and we get going. So
You
yes.
mentioned earlier on, you ask every person who comes into your rental store, "How'd you hear about us?" to start tracking attribution. So, we've done all the steps. We've agreed on budget. We've launched the programs. How hard is attribution? How long can you go until you start to see, okay, we spent $10,000. I think we got, $20,000 of rental revenue. Be able to pair that together? I know attribution marketing is historically challenging. It's gotten better, but how do you actually then close the loop at the end of your engagement, whenever that is, to say, okay, here's the ROI we think we drove based on the, I mean, is that, how possible is that to get to that point?
It's really tricky for a rental house. Typically, a rental house is not renting one brand. They're not renting one unit. And oftentimes, the manufacturers that they're renting from have their own marketing programs. They have maybe a co op program.
Yeah.
Maybe they have some social media assets. Maybe they have marketing that they're doing. Maybe they're at the ARA show or somewhere else and they are getting in front of end users, and then those end users are getting into the rental houses to then rent the units that they're doing. So there is a certain degree of we can't tell. And we're super upfront and honest with that.
Yeah.
um, One of the big things we talk about, especially in this market, is feeling. You should feel like your business is increasing because it isn't always a tangible ROI, and people don't
Mm,
like that conversation. It might take someone 2, 3, 4, 5 times of coming into your rental house before they rent something. That's just the reality of it. If you do retail, if you're a dealer, it might take more
you
than
know that.
that.
Yeah.
It might take 7, 8, 9 times. They might test drive something. Or if you're a rental house that sells used units and there's someone coming in off the street, because that's super common, you're going to be dealing with the exact same thing where you might get someone who's coming in multiple times and they just are having a hard time pulling the trigger. So it's just tricky and difficult. So our big thing is we talk about feelings, which obviously is a primarily male dominant industry, is not a popular, let's talk about your feelings. But when it comes to money, you should feel like you're making more money.
Yeah.
When you run your report at the end of the quarter, at the end of 6 months, at the end of the year, you should see an increase. I might not be able to say this was us, but if you did extra effort and things happened, it is reasonable to think that those two go together.
Mm.
And again, that's not always a popular discussion to have. One really good example, I have one location. I've worked with them for 8 years, 7 years, 8 years. They were one of our very first locations. Every time, and I'm not even talking about sometimes, every time I turn off their ads, they're like, we're spending too much money. I can't do this anymore. Please turn my ads off, because it's the easiest thing to cut. When you see that Google bill come off your credit card every single month, it is the easiest thing to cut. It's the
Hmm.
biggest, often the biggest budget line, and it's the first one to go. Every time I turn the ads off, within 2 weeks, I get a call. "Oh my gosh, that was such a bad choice. Please turn them on. I'm dead." Like, no one is walking in through my door. Every single
Yeah.
time. And then I have to go, "Remember when you were saying, I don't think they work. I think I'm spending too much money. All this kind of stuff like that," because we can't draw you click on this unit and they rent this unit and you spent X amount of dollars to get to that, because they might have clicked on something else or saw your name in a show directory or talked to somebody or 7 different things and then walked into your rental house to do it, because it isn't I go buy a tube of mascara off of Google and I click
Hmm.
on it and I purchase it and it gets in my cart. It doesn't work that way. It's much harder to track. So again, that
Hmm.
goes back to the like, you should feel and then see an increase.
Well, men have feelings too,
Yes, I
Becca, of
know.
course. And
It's just
the
different.
different feelings, they can definitely feel when they're making more money. And I think
Yes.
the challenge with marketing is multi-touch marketing, right? They'll see your TikTok and see your billboard and your physical store and see your Facebook ad and see your SEO. And they may like experience your brand 10 times before you even reach out. And then they do a rental and like, well, was it the ad from, or was it the SEO, or was it the billboard? It's like, I mean, all of it. Right. And we had a group in 2021 when we started Quipli. We were just doing e-commerce websites. And part of that, they were like, can you do ads? So we were actually running ads for like 6 months for our first few customers. And one of them got acquired by a national company and they were under LOI. And he was like, turn off the ads. I'm done, sold the company. And immediately revenue dropped for like 3 days. And he was like, this is going to mess my deal up. like, please turn the ads on immediately. We turn back on, and it's so funny. People are like, I don't know if marketing works. Well, they know when it doesn't, when it stops
Yeah.
working, right? And it's a huge part of every business, right? And the challenge is always attribution, right? And that doesn't mean just because you can't attribute exact one to one doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means it's hard to track.
Yep. Yeah, it used to be like the general rule was 5 to 7 touches to get someone to convert into a customer,
Yeah,
and I think the recent statistic is like 18 to 22. We're
yeah,
in a
that's
world that's
yeah.
cluttered with noise, so you have to get through the noise in order to get in front of the customer, and then you have to get in front of them. You got through the noise, so that maybe that was the first or second time, and then you have 18 to 20 more times to get in front of them before they did make the decision to come into your location
Mm.
and do the
And,
thing.
and trust is becoming more important, right? Because everybody claims they can do it. And you mentioned people being burned. People been burned for a long time on being
Yeah.
overpromised, right? So I think the trust part, people are more skeptical. They don't want to. They're not going to see one ad and go, "This is the best rental company of all time." Like they probably need to see you around multiple times, right? Um, that's changed. And I want to talk about the AI side real quick. You mentioned SEO. I mean, how is that impacting marketing, particularly SEO? Because like what we're hearing about like ChatGPT is now becoming like the place people search, right? And they just launched
Yep.
ChatGPT Atlas, which is like a web browser last week. People are saying that the SEO clicks are becoming less potentially because they're reading the summaries. It doesn't mean the marketing is less important. It's just we have to adapt to make sure we're ranking on the
Yep.
AI algorithm summaries. And are you seeing any of that happen so far?
Yeah, and we've already been, like, kinda doing that. So when we talk to, other locations, and I'm gonna say more importantly, outside of the rental industry when we're working with, like static locations that are service providers, instead like, it used to be like blogs and like making sure your meta tags were all set up. And those are all still really important things to make sure that you're educating your customer and that kind of stuff. But now we are optimizing for ChatGPT, which is funny and weird. And I use ChatGPT every day.
Yeah.
Like I love it. I think it's the best thing ever between that and Google Gemini. The two of them like are my go-to for even if it's just generating ideas. Like I
Yeah.
can't think of this, please help me, whatever. Or honestly, I'm being lazy and I need to know tax law in the state of Tennessee because we're setting up a this for that. And I'll tell it, please search the web and find me, X, Y, and Z. So we're thinking of those things as we're doing SEO for locations. It is a little different and the industry is still navigating that within the rental world of how to optimize that. Because I don't think we're at a place yet where you're in ChatGPT being like, "Where's the best rental house
Yes.
near me?" You're more like, "Hey, how do I use a mini excavator?"
Yeah.
So,
Right.
and then it's a different journey where we're trying to hit the manufacturer who's doing good white pages. They've got YouTube videos, they've got this, that, and the other thing. And then they're coming around that way and getting to the rental house because they've gone to the manufacturer, they've looked at their dealer rental house network, and then they've gone to the rental house to find them. So it's a little bit of a broader loop.
I think it's very early, but I do think over I don't know what period of time, 1, 3, 5 years, that
It's
becomes
coming.
a major like we track it for our own keywords, equipment rental software keywords, and we have seen we are now getting like impressions through ChatGPT, and
Mhm.
we haven't gotten like when you talk about number of leads we get, it's like 3%, 1%, it's like very minor, but it was 0% a year ago, right?
Yeah.
So that's why you kind of see where this is going. You mentioned how often you use ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is very much moving towards, yesterday they became a for-profit company. They're moving towards monetize. I mean, they're going to compete with Google, right? So, you have to imagine you play this forward in the next 5 years. You have to have an SEO strategy, but you also have to have an AI ChatGPT strategy. And I agree. I think it's very, 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 very early, but something that's changing, right? And you mentioned early on, you have to keep adapting because everything's always in flux.
Yep. And ChatGPT covers a wide variety of different stuff. So even going back to, the beginning when I was like, you have to have a person on staff that's going to buy into your marketing strategy. And even if you're hiring an outside company, like, we tout to be your
Yeah.
in house marketing company, And we still need a point person inside that's going to own it because we're not physically in there. And
Right.
then that person is probably going to be capable of using ChatGPT or Gemini to be like, what are the top TikTok trends right now that I should be
Mm,
making? I should be making videos about because they're changing so rapidly. To expect us as a marketing company or you, even as a user that's using social media to do those things, it is unrealistic. And also, why would you? You have a platform that'll do it for you.
that's right. Last topic we had on here. How do we make marketing not suck and be overwhelming?
I don't know if you can. So I think approaching it as a business asset and one of your most valuable team players is the way to make marketing not suck. Oftentimes,
Mm,
and especially now when, like you said, the number one answer to what the goal is for 2026 of ARA young professionals is more revenue. Marketing is the first one to go. There's two
mm.
schools of thought within marketing. Either we cut during a downtime or we market more during a downtime because people are marketing less. So we cut through the noise easier because we're doing more time and more effort and sometimes spending more money to get in front of them. So there's two different schools of thought for that. Uh, Marketing often doesn't suck if you understand who your customer is,
Mm.
you have a good team player, and what your goal is. And the goal is always money. It's always money, like we talked about before. So marketing cannot suck as long as you know who you're marketing to, you have a good teammate, and you understand the goal is to make more money or you don't have a business.
So when
If
people
those are
say,
out of
yeah, go ahead.
Good. I was like, if those are out of whack, you're going to be grumpy and angry. You're going to hate it. It's
Yeah.
going to be a nuisance. It's going to be one more thing you have to do during the day, which is what happens. I'm busy running my business. I'm busy doing my job. I don't want to have to do one more thing. And marketing is one more thing,
How to make marketing not suck? Well, don't be bad at it. That's how it doesn't suck.
right?
Like when you know what you're doing, if you know who your customer is, what your goal is, and you have a team to do it, it's very fun, right? If you like growing your business and making more money, which most of the people, I would almost say 100% of people listening to this podcast care about that because that's why they're listening to it. Uh, it doesn't suck if you're good at it, right? And that's where you guys can kind of come in. And even that first question, like who is your customer? That alone, even really thinking really deeply around who your customer is, more importantly, who is it not? That alone makes marketing not suck, right? Because then you're at least
Yep.
not marketing everything to everyone. We are the best rental company for anything in the world. We rent chairs and cranes and everything in between, and like that probably is hard to market. But if you're like,
Yeah.
we're the weekend warrior expert in Annapolis, Maryland for blah blah blah, like you can dominate that niche. A lot of what we've talked about is the positioning of who you're going after, who you are as a company.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you understand that, it doesn't suck.
That's right. Rebecca, you guys will be at the ARA show, I imagine,
We
right?
will.
We'll have a
Yep.
booth at the ARA show. So for folks listening, to check you
We
guys
will
out.
not actually have a booth at the ARA booth
No booth.
because we
Okay.
will be with other brands
All right.
within the ARA, which is how we usually operate. So you'll find me somewhere on the show floor.
All right. We'll keep an eye out. Last question I ask all of our guests, Becca, best career advice you've gotten or any career advice you've gotten that's helped shape your success that you've had in your career.
Oh man, that's a hard one. Um, oh goodness. I would say I've had two really good pieces of advice. One is from the friend that has helped us grow in this industry, which was never say no. Go figure it out. uh, which is great. Jump in with both feet, go figure it out. And then the other one would be from my husband, who has supported me unendingly
Mm,
um, during this process. And every time I come in and I'm like, so I've decided and I have a new idea, is to literally think logically and plan ahead. I, by nature, am not a good planner. I'm like, hey, this is a great idea. Let's go do it. And to stop for a moment and to think it through and think 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 15 years ahead. So those two things, don't say no, go figure it out, and to think ahead. Like if you could
mm.
see 15 seconds in the future, a year in the future, what would it look like? So between those
Mm.
two have been the success where we are right now. That and how to use a spreadsheet. My husband taught me how to use a spreadsheet because, spoiler alert, as a stay-at-home mom, you don't learn how to use spreadsheets. So
Yeah, they're, not the most intuitive. I feel like half the
No.
world is run on like Google Sheets and Excel,
Yep.
way more than people realize, but, don't say no, think long term, and also you mentioned you have a supporting team, your husband, right, and people who can
Yeah.
it takes a village. It's very lonely to run a company at the top, and you've got a team who supports you, which is important too.
Yeah, it is, and that goes back to the, like, making marketing not suck is if you know who your customer is and you've got a good team, um, and you know what your goal is, it just is it's so much better, and to be able to have that unending support and, like I said, to walk into the next room, sometimes his office is, right over there, and be like, "So today I decided," and just to have him smirk and laugh, and then be able to have a logical discussion through that of, and again, he's not working in the business with me all day, every day. So again, I get hiring another marketing company, even, and I will tell you, we don't do our own marketing. It sounds
Mm,
ridiculous. I have hired an outside person because I personally cannot step away from the business enough
mm,
to think logically and non-biasedly, unbiasedly about what we're
yeah.
doing and the messaging that we're putting through. So to be able to have that person at my fingertips all the time is something that is just so valuable. And to work through all of those processes, I cannot say enough.
We taking your own medicine by bringing in someone with a fresh set of eyes on your own marketing, so
Yes.
I love that. Well, Becca, it's been awesome having you on today. Thank you again for being a great guest. Episode 77. Thank you, Becca.
Thank you.